Hey everyone, welcome. Today, we're diving into a piece of legislation that could totally transform India's energy future, the SHANTI Bill of 2025. And this isn't just about building a few new power plants. Oh no, this is a radical new game plan for who even gets to build them in the first place.
So, think about this. For over 60 years, India's nuclear energy sector has been a government-only club. No private players allowed, period. So the big question is, why now? Why, after all this time, is India rewriting the rules for one of the most powerful and, let's be honest, complex energy sources on the planet? To really get our heads around this new bill, we first have to understand the sheer scale of what India's trying to achieve. This isn't just a small tweak to their energy policy. We're talking about a plan to power a massive national transformation. And if you look right at the introduction of the bill, the why is spelled out pretty clearly. India has this huge goal of becoming a developed nation, what they're calling Viksit Bharat. And to do that, you need massive amounts of clean, reliable power. You also need to fuel the next wave of tech, things like AI, quantum computing, and semiconductor manufacturing, which are incredibly energy hungry. And here's a big one. The bill aims to finally tap into India's vast reserves of thorium, an alternative nuclear fuel that could make the country way more self-reliant. And the government's conclusion? To get all this done fast enough, they need to bring in the private sector.
Okay, and that right there brings us to the single biggest, most game-changing part of this proposed law. It answers the fundamental question, who actually gets to be in the nuclear business from now on? The change is, well, it's pretty dramatic. Before, it was a completely closed shop. Only government-owned entities could build and operate nuclear plants. But now, this bill throws the doors wide open to, and I'm quoting here, any other company, as well as joint ventures. This is a seismic shift. We're talking about potentially unleashing a wave of private money and innovation into a sector that's been under state control for more than half a century. But you might be thinking, is this a total free-for-all? And the answer is no, not at all. The bill is really clear on this. While private companies can run the power plants, the government keeps an iron grip on the most sensitive stuff. Think of it this way. Private companies get to operate the engine, but the government still owns the high-octane fuel and is in charge of handling the highly radioactive waste. It's all about finding that balance between private sector speed and national security. Now, of course, anytime you start talking about bringing new private players into the nuclear world, the very first question on everyone's mind is safety. And for good reason, right? So how does this new bill actually create a rule book to manage that massive risk? Well, it sets up what you can basically think of as a two-key system for getting approval. An operator can't just get a single green light and start pouring concrete. Nope. They need two separate authorizations from two completely different bodies before they can move forward. It's like a built-in double check to make sure everything is absolutely by the book. So let's walk through that path. First, an operator needs a license, and they get this from the central government. This is kind of the big picture permission, the first key. But that key alone doesn't open the door. For that, you need key number 2, which is the safety authorization. This comes from the Atomic Energy Regulatory Board, the AERB. These are the technical experts who go through every single safety detail with a fine-tooth comb. You absolutely need both keys to get the project off the ground.
So, we have the ambition and we have the safety rules, but that brings us to maybe the most important question of all. What if, despite all the checks and balances, something goes terribly wrong? Who pays for it? This is where we get to the high-stakes safety net.
First off, the bill defines nuclear damage in a really broad way. This isn't just about the immediate damage to the plant. It covers loss of life, personal injury, damage to property, sure, but it also includes things like long-term economic loss and the massive costs of restoring the environment. The scope here is huge.
So, who's financially on the hook? The framework is crystal clear. The first line of responsibility falls on the operator, the company running the plant. They're liable up to a certain amount that's spelled out in the law. But if the disaster is so catastrophic that the costs go beyond that amount, a second layer kicks in. The central government of India steps up to cover the rest, all the way up to a final total cap.
So what is that total cap? The bill sets it at the rupee equivalent of 300 million SDR. Now, you're probably looking at SDR and thinking, what on earth is that? Well, it stands for Special Drawing Rights. It's basically an international reserve asset created by the IMF. The reason they use it is pretty smart. It helps make sure the liability fund keeps a stable value, so it isn't vulnerable to the ups and downs of any single currency.
It's a globally recognized, stable way to measure a very, very large amount of money. And there's one more important layer of accountability baked in here. It's something called the right of recourse. So what does that mean? In simple terms, it means that after an operator pays out compensation for an accident, they then have the right to sue a supplier or an individual if it turns out the incident was caused by them intentionally trying to cause damage. It's a way to chase liability down the supply chain and make sure that anyone acting with malice is held responsible.
Okay, so when you put all of these pieces together, the huge ambition, bringing in the private sector, that two-key safety system, and the liability framework, what does this all really mean for India's future? So let's just quickly recap the pillars of this thing. First, it throws the doors to the nuclear energy sector wide open to private investment for the very first time. Second, it balances that by putting in a strict two-key approval process to put safety front and center. And third, if the worst should happen, it lays out a clear, multi-layered financial safety net to handle the consequences. It's really a framework built on ambition, caution, and accountability, all rolled into one. You know, the SHANTI Bill 2025 is, without a doubt, one of the biggest energy policy shifts in India's recent history. It's this incredible attempt to balance a massive national ambition with the immense, serious responsibility that comes with harnessing nuclear power. And it leaves us with this one huge question for the future. If this bill passes, will it be the key that finally unlocks a new, clean, and powerful energy era for India? I guess only time will tell. Thanks for watching.